Today we have with us Marisa Salazar. She's a senior in chemistry at Princeton and will be entering medical school next year. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Marisa.
Thanks for having me.
So I'd just like to start with your background. So where are you from and what are you up to right now?
So I'm from Las Cruces, New Mexico. I was born and raised there, and now I'm a senior at Princeton, so I've been here for quite a few years.
And what do you want to do long term?
So I want to become a doctor. I'm not sure right now what specialty I want to go into. Maybe pediatrics, but I'm still thinking. I'm definitely interested in global health, and I'm not sure what that'll look like. Maybe working with Doctors Without Borders, maybe working in the U.S. but supporting global health. So I'm going to kind of explore that in med school.
And what made you want to be a doctor?
When I was thinking about in high school just what I wanted to do, there was a lot of things. I remember one time I made up a list of every profession I could think of and crossed off the ones that I couldn't see myself in. And I only crossed out 5 or 6. There weren't that many that I just wasn't interested in. But as I thought more, I knew 2 things. That one, whatever I did, I wanted to be serving people and interacting with people directly. And 2, that whatever I did, I wanted it to help address international disparities in resources and just opportunities that I saw. And in medicine, I really see a way for me to address those international disparities and also to serve people directly and use my skills with problem solving to help people and to solve problems with patients and also as a team with other doctors. So that really appeals to me.
I'd love for you to tell me about where your passion for meeting or diminishing these disparities in resources comes from.
Growing up, I learned a lot. I was very involved in my church, and in my church we were very focused on not just our community, but also just what the world around us looked like. And so I think from a young age, I was aware there are a lot of people who don't have things like I do. And as I grew up, I had a lot of opportunities educationally. I was able to take AP classes and things like that. But I also was very cognizant that there was a lot of people in the school where I went that just didn't come in with those opportunities or with a supportive family or things like that. So in my city, I saw those disparities, and then I was aware that they were there beyond as well. My grandma is from Mexico. My dad is from Mexico. My dad and my grandma immigrated when my dad was about 7, so he grew up here. But my grandma lives in Las Cruces with my family, but also she goes back to Juarez a lot, and I have family in Mexico, and so I've heard of what it was like for my dad to grow up in Mexico, and I've heard what it's like for my family, my extended family now, to live in Mexico, and there's just a lot of differences and a lot of opportunities that are not present in Mexico that are present here, and safety and other societal factors also impact just health and well-being of people. So I think that's kind of why I was very interested in addressing those problems.
So tell me about the medical school application process for you. You are still in it, you just finished. What was your experience like, and how do you feel like you could prepare for it even now as a high school student?
One thing about the medical school application process is it's very long. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I think that a lot of people come in thinking, oh, I gotta do organic chemistry, I gotta do chemistry, I gotta do physics all right now, all the first semester, or and try to pack everything in. And I think one thing that I've learned through this process is that's just not sustainable, because it's just such a long process. You're going through you have your classes, you have if you're not taking a gap year, then you're interviewing at the same time as you have your classes senior year. So just one thing that's really important to me was just having other things besides school. From the beginning, I've had other activities that just kind of keep me sane, other communities, friends. So I think that's one thing that's really important. Just being in high school, looking to go into college, thinking not only what classes should I take, but how can I schedule my time in such a way that I have free time? And how can I schedule my time in such a way that I'm able to breathe and enjoy myself? Because if not, you just get burnt out really easily. And it's really difficult to go through the medical school application process being burnt out, because you're just writing a lot about yourself, writing a lot about your passions. And if you're not feeling passionate because you've just drowned yourself with all this work, then it's really difficult. Also, one thing that I wish I had considered more is taking a gap year. I know for a lot of people, me included, like going in, it's like, no, I don't want to take a gap year. I just want to go straight from college to medical school. That's what I want to do. You know, I already know 100% that I want to do that, and there's no reason for me to take a gap year. And one thing I would say is, first, if you haven't gotten a lot of exposure to healthcare already, it's kind of hard to know 100% this is what you want to do. You know, there are other aspects of healthcare than just being a doctor. You know, you might want to be an MD, PhD. You might want to be an allied health professions. There's a lot of them out there, and they're really, really important. And so I think if you don't give yourself time to explore, you're kind of shortchanging yourself. And so I kind of really wish that I had taken a year off between Princeton and med school, and that would have given me more time during the senior year to not have to fly out to interviews while I was managing my classes, and also just giving me more time to think about what do I want to do, what exactly is even important to me in a medical school, and why do I want to do that, and just kind of think those things through. And I think it would have made it kind of easier to go into the application process for me. So just, it's not for everybody, a gap year. I didn't take one, and I am accepted into medical school. I'll be fine. But it can be a really good idea, and I think it's one that people don't think of enough.
So it sounds like a lot of what you said has lessons for the college applications process. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to that, since that's where most of our viewers are at right now, is figuring out, you know, I want to prepare for college, what's the application like, what should I do, like what advice do you have? So can you speak to what your experience was and what you wish you had known when you were in high school?
Actually, going into the college application process, I didn't know much, like at all, about applying to colleges. I had always assumed that I would go to NMSU, which is in my hometown, and it's where my older siblings had gone. It's where like everybody I had known had gone. So I was really assuming that that's where I would be. But as I like got feedback from like a few teachers, and also started receiving test scores and realizing, hey, I might be competitive for other things, I started looking into other schools. For me, it was a little bit like, I know a lot of people go in thinking, oh, I want to go to Princeton, I want to go to Yale, I want to go to Tufts, or I want to go to Pomona. And for me, it wasn't like that. The way I did my decision process might be very different from a lot of people, but for me, finances were a really important consideration, just for my family situation. And so I only really seriously considered schools where there were either significant merit scholarships that I could potentially get, or there was really good financial aid. Like Princeton, and there's a few schools where there is no loans aid. So they look at what your family is expected to contribute, and they take that out of like not just the tuition, but like everything, the room, the board, everything. They make a budget, so they take out what your family is expected to contribute, and then they cover all the rest. And you're expected to have a job and stuff during the semester, but that's okay. So I think one thing that I would really encourage people to look at if finances are a consideration for them is what kinds of scholarships or things does the school offer? Some say, oh, we cover 100% need, but they'll cover that with loans. So just that's important. But also there's other scholarships out there. Like there's a Bill Gates scholarship, there's local community scholarships from local foundations, or like if their parents are involved in a company or something, there's other scholarships. So that might give them more like a broader like opportunities to look at a lot of different schools if they get an outside scholarship. But so for me, that was really important. So I kind of narrowed it down from there. And then also, for me, other things that were really important were the quality of education, just in the amount that the university invested in undergraduates, and just the quality. So for me, NMSU isn't the most highly ranked or anything, but if I went there, I'd be staying at home, I would be saving a lot of money, and I would get to stay with my family, which is also important to me. So for me, it wasn't worth it to move unless the other school was very high quality and also had a really good aid.
So since no one in your family had ever gone to like an Ivy League school or anything like that, did you struggle with feelings of, oh, am I good enough to go? Do I think that I can get in? And if you did, like, how did you handle those types of thoughts or feelings?
I kind of did wonder, will I get in or not? But it wasn't so much, my heart wasn't dead set on going to Princeton or going to Harvard. What I wanted to do was go to college. And I knew that I would get into NMSU, and that if I went there, I would have to work a little bit harder to get the same level of education that I would get at Princeton or Yale or something like that. But I felt pretty confident that if I worked really hard and like got to know my professors and like sought out all the resources, there might be fewer resources, but there are still resources at whatever university you go to. So I felt pretty confident that I could achieve my goals, even if I went to NMSU. So I think for me, that kind of took the pressure off, because honestly, like, Princeton is great. I am very grateful to go here, but so are other schools. And I think that's another thing, a piece of advice that I would have for the college application process, like, apply to your dream schools. There's really no reason not to. And work really hard on your applications. Some people are kind of like, oh, I don't even know if I'll get in, so I'll just like write this essay in a night or something. You want to give yourself the best opportunity to get into those schools that you really want to get into. But also, don't feel like that one decision is going to affect your entire life, because it won't. I've met people at med school interviews who are from state schools, who are from other Ivies, who are from small private liberal arts schools, from all over. And so, yes, there are differences between college, and yes, it is an important decision, but it is not the one decision that will determine where your life ends up.
So what are some of the biggest failures or setbacks you've experienced in your life? And how did you deal with them? What did you learn from them?
Coming into Princeton, I was always at the top of my class, I was also actually homeschooled for a large portion of my educational career, but like when I like did activities with other people, when I did like challenges or like chemical Olympiad or things like that, I was always very near the top, if not the top. And so for me coming here, it was a really different experience being surrounded with so many people who were in a lot of ways smarter than I was. And like coming in, I was a person who tutored people in calculus, like helped my peers in calculus, and we got through it together, but I was giving help. And the first math class I took here at Princeton, I decided I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to take an advanced, so there's 2 linear algebras that are offered here. well, actually 3, but one's for math majors, and that one's like crazy. I didn't want to challenge myself that much. But I was like, no, I won't take the standard one. I'm going to take the like more advanced one that's more theoretical. And so I did, and that was an extremely difficult course for me. I went in expecting, this is going to be difficult and a lot of work, but if I study really hard, then I can do it. And it did end up okay. I'm really glad I took the course, actually. But that's the first first course where I actually failed the exam. The first quiz, I failed it. I was several standard deviations below the mean. So it wasn't just numerical score. I actually failed that quiz. And for me, that was kind of crushing because I try not to put too much emphasis on how I do and like link it to my identity, because that's not who I am. How I do, I want to do well, and I want to strive and use the talents and develop the talents that I've been given, but those also don't determine who I am as a person. But it's all good and well to say that, but there's also a feeling of being crushed if you don't do as well as you used to or you expect. So for me, that course was really helped me think, okay, I need to like not be proud. I need to go and ask for help. I learned how to, work with other people in math, because it would have been me working alone and then helping other people. I had to actually learn how to start from scratch and work with other people in order to answer problem sets or study for exams. And also, I think one thing that I've learned since, that I wish I had known since the beginning of the course, is there is such a thing as stereotype threat, where you go in and even if there are these stereotypes out there, and I was very cognizant of these going in. There are stereotypes that women are bad at math. There are stereotypes that Hispanics are bad at math. And going in, I was like, I'm going to prove those wrong. But even having that thought, I'm going to prove those wrong, kind of makes you not have as much mental space to think about the actual math you're doing. And so that can kind of decrease your performance. If you haven't heard of stereotype, that I really encourage you to look it up. There's this great book called Whistling Vivaldi that talks all about it. But so during the midterm, I definitely remember sitting there and being like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this, but I need to do this. Like, I'm not going to like prove them right. I'm going to like prove them wrong. But in having to think about those thoughts, I was not thinking about how to do this transformation. And so that just took up my mental space. And so like since then, I've learned a lot of strategies, like there's self-affirmation, or where you think about other values or other things that you value. And that kind of helps you just have a different perspective and not have to fight against those other negative thoughts that are coming in. So I really wish that I had known about that going into the course. But I think that the course was really helpful for me because it showed me I can go into a course and I can be near the bottom or average, and that's okay. I can learn a lot and I can still really enjoy the process of learning.
Well, I would say you're breaking stereotypes because you've gone on to become one of the most academically successful people in our year. So congratulations to that.
Thank you.
So I have one last question for you today. What values or principles do you live by?
I am a Christian. My religion is really important to me, and I think that really informs a lot of the values that I live by. So I think ultimately for me, what my values boil down to is I want to honor God. And what that means actually in how I live that in my life is I believe that God has called me to love people, whether or not they deserve that. And so like that might include like helping someone who's procrastinated like up until the deadline and just at the last day studying for the exam, and like helping them out even if I like am pressed for time myself. So just, yeah, showing love and grace even when it's not deserved. And I think another thing that my faith has like kind of informed me, my values, is just being very honest, living a life of integrity, even if nobody else knows. For me, it doesn't really matter. Like, I want to be honest in my work. I want to be, if I'm not sure about something, if something is wrong or not just like let it slide, but ask and be proactive. One last thing that like I really try to live by is leaving wherever I'm in a better place, not just for me, but for the people who come after me. So in Princeton, I've been heavily involved in tutoring, but I don't want to just tutor for the people who are here now. I want to make changes that will help the people who come after me. Like, I've seen people come through, pre-med students, and like be turned away by the intro like science classes or things like that. So I want to change tutoring, change the way people think about succeeding and what it means to be successful and to be able to go on to be a healthcare professional or even a scientist. And I want to like leave that legacy behind me of having created a system in which people feel more welcome, more supported, and more willing to admit they need help, because we all need help. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Marisa.
Thank you.